to the UIAAA Connection podcast. GoFan and VNN are proud to be the exclusive sponsor of the UIAAA Connection. Now a combined company, GoFan and VNN provide a seamless integration for digital ticketing and athletic websites. Direct your fans to one place for all your athletic events, communications, and tickets to home and away games. Thank you to GoFan and VNN for their exclusive sponsorship of the UIAAA Connection.
Welcome back to another edition of the UIAAA Connection. I'm your host, Mark Hutch Hunter. Today we have as our special guest Tara Osborne, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, currently the Assistant Director at the Alabama High School Athletic Association. Welcome to the podcast, Tara.
Thank you.
Let's have you begin by sharing with our audience here in the U.S. and across the world where you grew up, where you went to college, your first job, etc.
Yeah, so I am actually from a small town in the far northwest corner of Georgia, as you can go, called Trion, Georgia. I'm grew up there, my parents, my grandparents, everyone there. So real small town. I'm the youngest of three. And so my oldest sister was into band, and then my brother and I were both into sports. So my brother was a two-sport athlete in high school and ended up playing college basketball at Columbus State University. And then I was a three-sport athlete in high school. I went to junior college on a basketball scholarship in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and then I transferred to Columbus State University for my last 2 years. But everyone I knew was in Trenton, and it's just a great small town, and sports, it's small schools, sports are everything. And so I started playing when I was young. Believe it or not, I was a dancer first for a couple of years, and then mom and dad realized real quick that basketball was my love, and so then I probably about third, fourth grade, I started really focusing on basketball.
Perfect. So let's delve into a little more. So you were able to play obviously all through high school and 4 years in college?
Yes. Yep. And my degree is actually early childhood education. I honestly, I don't know why being in administration never really crossed my mind. Um, Coaching did for sure, but I had always, when from the time I was a little girl, I was like, I'm going to be a teacher because, of course, I had teachers who meant so much to me. One that stood out was my first grade teacher, and that's when I was like, okay, I want to teach. That's what I'm gonna do. But um, for whatever reason, I don't know why coaching, because everybody thought that's what I would go into. Um, but so I just happened upon it getting into coaching and administration later on. But I said my degree was actually early childhood education. And so I got I think it was January 2004. I was approached. I was living in Montgomery, Alabama. Had met my husband, and we got married in 2002. I was working for our church actually at the time in the children's ministry. And I was approached by a private school in Montgomery, and saying they had heard about me. They knew I had played college basketball. I had taught because I was teaching in 2002. That was my actually first teaching job. And so they asked me to come in and talk to them. And so I ended up taking that position. And that's how I got into coaching. And I was hired on as volleyball and basketball coach. And then I taught PE K through 12 because it was a very small private school. But within my first couple of months, the athletic director pulled me off to the side and he said, I see something in you. And I think you would be a great athletic director one day. And I was like, I don't have that degree, and he said, it's all right. I'm about to take you under my wing. And so he started training me. And actually within 8 months, I was named the school's athletic director because he was getting ready to retire. And so that's how I actually got into coaching and then athletic administration.
What year was this that you were named the AD?
That I believe that all happened in 2004. Um, it all happened fast. We had adopted our first child during this time, and then I also had found out I was pregnant in '05, and so it was. But I had been there about if it wasn't the end of '04, it was early '05 when they ended up naming me as athletic director.
Perfect. Thanks for sharing that. We'll delve into that a little bit more a little bit later. Let me ask you this. Talk about the mentors and the leaders in your life that have made a difference to you over the years.
Yeah, of course, my parents. My parents were our biggest supporters. I don't think there was ever one time that my brother or sister or myself ever looked up in the stands and we did not see at least one of our parents plus our grandparents. My mother's mom and dad, they followed us all over. They were ready to go at all times. And so, um, they of course, they were my first, mentors, but I would say my biggest mentor was my high school coach, Gene Durden. He came to our high school. I believe it was the summer before my freshman year or sophomore year, but he took a group of girls who didn't know what winning meant. And, he showed us not only what winning on the basketball court meant, but winning in life. And he ended up being the school changed name. So when I graduated, it was Northwest Georgia High School. The following year, it changed to Dade County High School, which is what it was when my mom and dad went to high school there. And so he ended up staying in Dade County, I believe it was 15 years. And from his first year coming on our campus, he took the teams to the playoffs every year. He now is at Buford High School in Buford, Georgia, and still just as successful. But he changed not only the game of girls basketball at our high school, but many schools just in our region and in the state of Georgia, in my opinion. He's one we would have jumped through a wall if he had told us we've got to jump through a wall, but um, it was just amazing how, he took all of us and what he did. But it was always one life lesson after another. And so he made the biggest impact. And still to this day, when um, things happen in my life, in my family's life, after I, of course, call my family, he's the first person I call. And he still, like I said, he truly meant when he says I'm just a phone call away, 100% he meant that. And so that was something I wanted to be when I did get into coaching.
Perfect. Let me ask you a little bit of a personal question here, Tara. What's your biggest failure or disappointment in life, and what did you learn from it?
Um, I think for me, I did not believe in myself for many years. Um, because I didn't always go in the with the mindset as I'm going to be a coach, I'm going to be an administrator. And so I didn't believe in myself, and I regret that because I feel like I often wonder, did my athletes, did I know I gave them everything I had, but was there something that I could have done more. Um and I was scared, absolutely scared, um, and to rise to the next level. Those dreams were in the back of my head, but I'm like, you can't do that. You're and a lot of times for females, it's harder, especially in administration. And so um, I was probably real timid. Um, and so that is something, but it took me probably about 5 years before I realized that I could do it. and that it was okay to step out of my comfort zone and try something new. And were there going to be days I failed? Absolutely. And I did. But then, someone once said, Tara, uh, if you fail, fall forward. And I was like, wow, and that it was okay. You are going to make mistakes. And so I think I held back probably for my first, several years. And I don't know, did that athletic department grow the way it could have? Yeah, it was a very small private Christian school, but I think of those things now, but I know I gave it everything I had. But I remember that turn of, hey, I can do this, and it is okay.
But thank you for sharing that. I should have asked this question when we began. So you were in grew up in the northwest corner of Georgia, is that right? What you told me?
Mhm.
So how far is that by car from Atlanta?
So from Atlanta, it's about 2.5 hours.
Okay, and so Atlanta, so you're maybe closer to Nashville or some other cities or
Um, well, we were like 10 minutes from Chattanooga, Tennessee. It was about
oh,
2 hours
okay.
from Nashville. I mean, it was the fall. Like, I could be in Fort Payne, Alabama in 10 minutes, and I could be in Chattanooga, Tennessee in 10 minutes. And so we weren't real far from everywhere. Now, when I went to Columbus State, it was 4 hours from home. Um,
Hmm.
so I went from being 30 minutes, where we actually lived in Chattanooga when I was at junior college, to 4 hours. And then, I ended up in Alabama because my sister and her family were here and in Montgomery. And so that was, it's probably about 2 hours from Columbus to Montgomery. And then I met my husband, so we stayed.
There you go. So, and I should have asked this earlier. So you're right there in that corner. At least for me, I want to know, are you a volunteer, a tiger, a yellow jacket, roll tide, who did I forget? Or a bulldog. So
I'm
where's yours?
actually an Auburn Tiger. My entire family, except my brother and I, graduated from Auburn University. And of course, my brother and I, we went where our education was paid, or we
Sure.
probably would have went to Auburn. And so now where I'm at, I'm about an hour from Auburn. We still visit. My parents had tickets, to all the games growing up, and so I'm an Auburn Tiger. My husband, though, is Alabama, so we have a divided household. My oldest and husband are Alabama fans, and my youngest and myself are Auburn fans.
So how does that work once the Iron Bowl rolls around?
You know, I used to be really bad. I was a bad Auburn fan. Like my husband was just laid back. I mean, we would cheer, but I was obnoxious.
Hmm.
And after we got married and had kids and probably 8 years into our marriage, I was like, you know what? I'm sitting here getting all upset. The kids who are 18 years old, 19 years old, and there's so much more to life than, whether Auburn wins or how they're playing or whatever. I mean, I still get into it, but wow, so much life has happened, and I realize, yeah, it's great, and I will always pull for Auburn, but I'm not the fan that I used to be. We watch it now and he'll cheer, I'll cheer, but at the end of the day, no matter the outcome, we might be disappointed, but hey, let's keep on going with life. There's no need in it just upsetting us like it used to, especially for me.
That's well said. Let me go back then and get a little bit more information. So you became the athletic director in 2004. So my first question is, in the 20 years that you've been in athletic administration, how has it changed or how is it the same?
I feel like it's changed a lot. You know, I feel like when I first started, and of course they knew I was a new athletic director, but I really felt like parent support was, they would get behind the administration, um, and even when they had a disagreement, there was still that respect there. Um, they let their coaches do their jobs. And I felt like, and the kids, again, my girls that played for me there, I felt like, again, if I'd asked them to jump through a wall, they would have. And I feel like that's changed a little now how it is. They I mean, you still have kids who work hard, and you've got some amazing, parents too. But I know the last couple of years that I was athletic director, I really felt like I dealt a lot more with parents, and um, just had to do with playing time. I came from an age, I mean, my parents would have never went to my high school coach, "Hey, my daughter's not playing enough," or whatever, and if they had of, he would have told them, "Well, how much work she putting in. She knows why." The conversation would have never came up, and I feel like that is happening more and more, of, I've even heard of college coaches where parents are calling them, "Why is my kid not playing?" And
Mm,
I think it's changed a lot in that way. Um, One of the hardest things I really had to deal with when I first became the athletic director, at where I came from, is being a female athletic director. I had many, many dads who gave our head of school, a fit because they felt like I could not be the athletic director because I didn't play football. We are in the South, and football, is
yes.
the top. Um, but I think instead of taking it real personal, I knew I had to show them. I loved their kids. I was going to work hard. Nobody was going to outwork me. And I was constantly looking for ways to improve. And when I got to Prattville Christian, the athletic director that hired me at the time, he is actually who introduced me to the NIAAA. I had never heard of the NIAAA. And when they hired me, they knew, "Hey, we want to get you back into athletic administration." And so he and his wife, they would take me to the started taking me to the conferences, and that is where I really felt like I started growing as an athletic director, was at the national conference. But and I think the family started seeing that, but I would say the biggest difference was the um, parent support from when I first began, and the work ethic of kids. They understood what hard work is, to where now, yeah, their kids work hard. I don't want it to sound like they're not, and they don't understand hard work, but we're also in um, a society where they want things to happen overnight, and it's just not, it's not that way anymore. And kids athletic abilities are even greater, so you've got to work even harder. And I know it's hard. I as a parent, I was on the other end of my child sitting the bench, and I know, they worked hard as well. I watched all the extra work, and so it's just, it's a different day and time, but we still have great. I had some amazing parents, even at Prattville Christian. Had some phenomenal ones, but I think I had to prove myself. And I think now you have to kind of prove yourself, where when I first began, people just automatically supported you from the very get go. but I was okay with that. Again, I wasn't going to be outworked, and I never asked anybody to do anything that I wasn't going to do. And so, um, it's just it's hard as a parent to see your kids struggle and face adversity. And so I think kind of that's where everything is around now is um, the adversity that's out there and the struggles, and parents are dealing with, our teenagers as well, dealing with a lot of mental issues, which I think has caused a lot of it as well. So it's just a different time, but there's still amazing people out there. It's just you have to figure out how to reach your parents and your kids.
It's a great answer. Thank you for that. It answered actually two follow-up questions that I had. One about being a female athletic director, so thanks for expounding on that. And the other was your involvement in the state association and the NIAAA. And so I do want to ask you a little bit, expound a little bit more on that because many of our listeners may or may not know, but you had the opportunity to serve on the NIAAA board as a
Mhm.
representative from Alabama. And so, how do you go from a brand new AD in 2004 to getting this opportunity? Because I've said this many times on the podcast, there's the chance to serve on the board just doesn't come along every day. So, talk
Mm-mm.
about that.
Yeah, and the way I got on was really, I mean, it was a God thing for us. Like, so I had started going, I wish I could remember the date of my first national conference. Coach Sam Peak was our athletic director, and that, I mean, he wasn't gonna let me say no that first year. And so immediately he's like, "Hey, there are classes and you're gonna take at least one, you know." And so then, I mean, I took as many as I could. But so on the board, it rotates. And so it was section three. Alabama's in section three. And it was Alabama's time, or section three, to for Alabama to have a representative on the board. And actually, someone else had been selected from our state to serve on the board, but he ended up getting a job with the NFL. I can't remember what team, but that's when concussion really started picking up, and so he was, from what I understand, had been hired by this team in the NFL to really start all the concussion research and things like that. And so then we were left, and so it was just myself and another athletic director in Alabama, because you have to have so many classes and things like that before you can serve. And it was just down to, it was us two. And so I just got a call out of the blue one day saying, "Hey, would you be interested?" And I said, "Absolutely," And so they did check with the other athletic director first, because he had been in it a lot longer, but he was not interested. And so that's how I actually got onto the board. And so that was all in, that would have been in it was probably November of 2016, because we were getting ready to go to Nashville. Um, for the national conference, and that's where I would be rolling on the board. Or was that, maybe that was, yes, that was November when I got the phone call, and within 2 weeks, everything was set into place. And so at the end of that conference is when I rolled onto the board. So that would have been in December of 2016. And so it was,
Talk about some of the people you served with, and maybe share some stories of that, because that's obviously when we first met,
uh-huh.
when you were on the board.
Yeah, so um it I remember being scared to death walking in that room. I knew no one. I mean, I had seen them, at the meeting, at the end of the year meetings, and things like that. But when I walked in, immediately I felt welcome. I remember Annette Scoggin just coming right over, giving me a big hug. And I believe she was rolling off the board, I believe. Um, And then Deb Van Kyken ended up being my mentor because we were placed with someone that first year. Um, just so many, of course, the names are exiting my mind right now, but everyone, Rich Barton was huge. Of course, Mike Blackburn, Phil Rise, and everyone just welcomed me with open arms. And I said in that meeting, I'm like, wow. But then I was like, I'm not sure what they're talking about here. And but it was just amazing walking in that room the first time. It's an opportunity like no other. It went by so fast. You served 3 years, and you grow so close to all of those sitting around that table. And they're all dealing with things you're dealing with on a daily basis. And that's the great thing about the NIAAA is really that is the only organization for athletic administrators. And so to be able to be at that meeting every year, and of course they always have section meetings closer in the summer time, uh, just to sit with those and pick everybody's brain that things they're going through what you're going through. But to know that I was able to serve on that board, to serve our athletic administrators across the United States, was just amazing. And I had, I think my favorite story, and I'm going to try not to get emotional here,
Mhm.
um, but I'm going to give it a shot. So, my first meeting was in December 2016. When you're on the board, you go to Indianapolis twice a year, once in February and another in July. And right before I think it was about 2 weeks before I was to fly out to Indianapolis for our first February meeting. So really, because that board meeting I sat in Nashville, um, you're kind of still sitting back because everybody's, the ones that are rolling off. So this would be my true first meeting where I'm sitting at the table. Um, and it was about 2 weeks prior, and I was doing my monthly checks, and I found a knot on my left side. And I'd had breast cancer, never ran in my family. My aunts had something called thick tissue, so I thought maybe that was it. So of course, here I was trying to get ready for my first board meeting, and I was nervous. Um, I knew I'd be flying by myself. Um, and so a lot of things were going on there. Um, and I tried to get into the doctor before I left, but you have to have a referral to have a mammogram and all kind of stuff. And I had an appointment actually set with my doctor that was going to be 2 days after I was to return from Indianapolis. And so I go out to Indianapolis and I'm trying to be as present as I can and taking in everything. But of course, this knot was in the back of my head, my mind just constantly. And I remember each break we had, I would call my doctor, hey, have y'all had any cancellations? Things like that. Long story short, there were no cancellations. I went in on my regular scheduled. The doctor felt the knot, but he said I feel like it's a cyst, and so he referred me to go to have my mammogram. Back in October that year, I had fell while walking my miles in the neighborhood. And so I had all my injuries were on my left side, and he felt like maybe it was from that fall because it was on the left side. Um, but anyway, I had the mammogram while the radiologist came out after that and said, we need to do a biopsy today. Can you wait 45 minutes? And so, again, you know, your mind changes. I called my husband and my sister. They came over and sat with me, and they did the biopsy. And I remember looking up at the screen in the biopsy, and I turned around, I looked at it, and I was like, "There's nothing smooth about that." And I knew in my head that I felt like when she said, we'll call you within 24 to 48 hours, I kind of prepared myself that I was going to get that call. So I did. Within 24 hours, I got the call that I had breast cancer. It was, they felt like it was a stage 2 at the time, but they knew I was something called HER2 positive, which was very aggressive form of breast cancer. And so, needless to say, after we told my school, my family, and all of that, I let our board, NIAAA board, know. And wow, not a week went by that I didn't have someone reaching out to me. And of course, you have to go through all kind of tests and all of that. And so in April of 2017, I had a double mastectomy. I remember that morning I got a call from Mike Blackburn, Rich Barton, just praying, messaging me. And they were truly a family. They were my support system. And I began chemo in May. And I found out as we got closer to July, I was looking forward to going to the board meeting, getting away. Um, I'd had some that first chemo was rough. Um, and they, of course, helped lifting me over that. um, but I found out probably, I think it was about a week, it might have been 2 weeks before I was to fly out for the July board meeting, that I had gotten an infection. And so we started oral antibiotics. They did not work. And so the day before I was to fly out, my oncologist told me I could not fly, I could not leave. I was going to have IV antibiotics for probably the next 15 days straight. And so um, I remember I was angry. Um, and but I started going. You do what you got to. And so I had 2 days of IV antibiotics, and that third day I knew everybody they had flown into Indianapolis, and I was on my way to go have my antibiotics. I had to go to the cancer center because it took 4 hours to get my antibiotics by IV. And I was angry. I was crying. I was ready to give up. I felt like I was not doing my part on the board. And so that bothered me. Um, and I remember I got a phone call as we were on our way from one of the board members saying, "Hey, can you get another phone?" Because, I was on mine. And so I got my husband's, and they said, "We need you to get on Facebook." And I said, "Okay." So I got on Facebook, and the image I saw has been permanently burnt into my brain. But it was all the board members had bought. My school had sold Team Terra shirts as a fundraiser for us, and they had all surprised me and bought them all. And they were sitting at the end of the board meeting, and the ones in front had turned the back of it um, to the front, and then everybody else were standing behind them. And, they had their strong arms out, and just saying, "We've got your back. We've got you, and you can do this." And that's what I needed. And so, you're already close, but I knew then I've got something special here. And so, anyway, they saw me through my entire battle until the day I rang the bell, which would have been in July of 2018. And so that was probably my most special. I mean, serving with them and the hours that these people put in are amazing. Your executive director, associate executive director of the NIAAA, man, just how powerful they are in the love of high school sports, but supporting the athletic administrators across the United States. And so it was just such an honor to serve. It is very hard to roll off that board the day you have to say goodbye. It is wow, it's a struggle. Everybody's crying. And of course, I was an emotional wreck. Everybody knew I was going to be. But that's probably one of my most favorite, other than serving our athletic administrators. It was truly a family, and I still call them my NIAAA family, and they always will be, and we all still stay in touch.
Mhm. That is awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I realize that's a difficult, well, I can speak. We do have something in common because I'm a cancer survivor myself. When I was back on the board, I had prostate cancer, so
Wow.
certainly not as detailed. I didn't have the chemo. I had the radiation like you
Hmm.
did, but I know that that's hard to share, and I know when the medical people tell you have cancer, it's not, you always hear about your friends or people you knew that got it, but when it's you and they tell you, boy, it's different. And
Uh-huh.
the fact that you had the NIAAA family there, I think that is just so incredible. So
Oh yeah, it was a God thing. How I got on the board, and then this happening right after I, rolled onto the board. God knew that was exactly what I was going to need.
mm,
So I had them and my PCA or Prattville Christian Academy where I came from. They were just phenomenal. I was lifted up my entire time, and um, the kids got behind us. So yeah, it was just what can be a bad time. Having the NIAAA family and my school family was amazing.
that is the tender story again. Thank you for sharing. Let me ask you
Yeah.
quickly before we finish up here.
Mhm.
Talk about your recent move from Prattville, and now you're the assistant director in the Alabama uh,
Yeah, yeah.
athletic office. So talk about that for a minute.
So I probably about 10 years ago, I had the goal of I want to be, I had been given so much confidence from the NIAAA, taking those courses and everything that I was like, you know what? I want to be an associate athletic director at a small college, or I want to serve for our state association. I want to be an assistant director. And so I had the opportunity, I think 3 times over the past couple of years to interview for open positions, but never got them. And I interviewed not this past June, the June before, when another opening came. And we got Alabama High School had a new executive director. We had a lot of several changes, but I interviewed with him that June and um, saw in I think September that he had hired someone else. I'm like, "Ah, well, it's still just not my time." And this past December, so December 2024, it was the last day of school, and not many were on campus. Our high schoolers were the only ones you would see there were making up exams. And Mr. Harmon, our executive director, called me and, hey, you still, well, he had called me, I tell you that back like a week out. Hey, are you still interested? I'm like, absolutely, I am. And I had been very upfront with our head of school that they knew this was my goal and this is what I felt like God was leading me to one day. And so we talked. He told me he would let me know in a couple of days, and um, I didn't hear anything. And then it was the last day of school before Christmas break. I get a call from him and was like, "Are you ready?" And so it happened really fast. I wanted to let my coaches know. And so he wanted to let his staff know. And so within 45 minutes, he was telling the staff, which I knew a lot of them because a lot of them had become mentors for me. As we were under the Alabama High School, we were a private school, but we were in the public school league. Um, and so I couldn't wait to serve, in that area. And so my first day was January the 6th of 2025, and it has been amazing. Just such a great opportunity. I'm learning so much every day. And I'm so thankful Mr. Harmon gave me the opportunity he's given me. And so I'm getting to learn all kind of sports that some we didn't have at our school. So when you're an assistant director there, you have some primary sports and then you have secondary. So my primary sports are flag football, swim and dive, cheer, and soccer. And then my secondary are volleyball, basketball, and softball. And so right now I'm in the middle of three of mine are fall sports. Of course, swim's kind of fall/winter because they finish on into the winter season. But today I actually have another cheer regional, and is here local. But I'm loving it. Mr. Harmon has just been a huge support. But my most favorite thing is just getting to serve our student athletes, our athletic administrators, school administrators, um, just on a bigger level now. And it's been a dream come true for me.
Thank you for that. Let's finish up with a couple of questions. The first being this. If you had two suggestions for a brand new athletic administrator and they had to follow Tara's suggestions in order to become a success, what would your two suggestions be?
Um, when you begin, don't be too hard on yourself, and don't doubt yourself. You've been placed in that position for a reason. I firmly believe that with each position you're given, you have been placed there for that time. And so to go in confident, always keep the interest of the entire student athletes at the forefront. You can't make decisions based off of one, five, or 10 kids. You've got to make a decision based off the entire student athletes. And that's hard sometimes because, some things could hurt others, but when it's all said and done, it's what's better for all of the students that you are serving and coaches. Um, and then, if you've based a decision off of what you felt was best, go with it. And if you've done it with integrity, then you've done your job. And you may fail, and that's okay, but keep going and don't let it set you back and keep you from making other decisions. Um, Again, if you've kept your kids at the top of your mind and you've given it everything you've had and you've done it with integrity and done it the right way, then you go with it and don't dare let it set you back. And
Well
and
said.
again, just don't ask others to do something you wouldn't do.
I like that. Those are some great suggestions. So thank you for sharing those with us. We'll finish with this. Tara, what questions should I have asked you that I failed to ask you?
Um, Probably would I do it all over again? And the answer would be absolutely I would. I'm thankful, through the highs and the lows that I wasn't going to be a coach. I wasn't going to be an administrator, and just how it all happened. Yeah, it's taken 20 years, um, but I would do it all over again. And I've loved every minute of it. I love all the kids I got to serve, all the coaches I got to serve. Serving is my most favorite thing. And so now getting to serve on a bigger stage. And that's what I hope the coaches in Alabama, the parents, the student athletes know that, when we make decisions, um, we don't like to tell kids they're ineligible.
Hmm.
We're doing what we do because we love it and we want to see our state continue to just get better and better.
That's well said. On that note, that wraps up this edition of the UIAAA Connection. Again, our special guest today has been Tara Osborne, Certified Master Athletic Administrator, the Assistant Director at the Alabama High School Athletic Association, and former Director of Athletics at Prattville Christian Academy. Tara, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
For our listeners, we hope you tune in again next week for another edition of the UIAAA Connection.